Hello, welcome. This is Lisa from Art is Moving and Lauren on the other side. We're here today with Creative Nectar, Stephanie and Jenny. Welcome so much, you guys. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, well, I'm Stephanie Gray, and I'm in the Kansas City, Missouri area, and I'm a co-founder of Creative Nectar, a creative transformation guide, and an artist. And I'm happy to
Awesome.
be here.
Nice.
And hi, everyone. I'm Jenny Hahn. I'm also in the Kansas City area, co-founder of Creative Nectar Studio. I'm an artist, an author, workshop facilitator, mindfulness teacher, and I too am thrilled to be here with you both and with you all listening.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being here. So for our podcast, we tend to just jump off with a question that's sort of inspired by the last conversation. And last time Lisa and I chatted, we were talking about the collaboration we've had going between us for 15 years. We're in our 16th year. And we're like, why are we still doing this? And after listening to that conversation, I wanted to ask you guys, how do you know that creativity is the answer? And just kind of like, why do we, like, for me, it's like, why do I keep coming back to creativity?
Yeah, I mean, I can go first. Creativity is the answer for me. We'll put it that way for sure. I've been doing something called process art. Oh my gosh, I think it's going to be close to 25-ish or
Mhm.
more years now. And although I didn't start out as an artist, the creative spark that I found while doing the process, um, long story short, has saved me,
Mhm.
from many things. So for me, I feel like it is the way for me. It is so much for me.
Yeah, and for me as well, Steph and I both met about 24 years ago, I want to
Oh,
say,
wow.
right, Steph? Because I
Yep.
started process painting in 2000 with our teacher, Sarah Oblinger, who
Mhm.
had a group called Paint or Die.
Oh, wow.
And at that time, I was just graduating from art school. I was struggling with an eating disorder, with a lot of self-hate. Outwardly, I was this young artist practicing doing illustration, but inwardly it was like I was empty. There was something broken.
Mm.
And when I saw the flyer for that class, something in me, every cell of my body just said, yes, yes, I have to do it. And it was actually at Stephanie's house in your basement, Steph, where that class was happening, that 8-week class. And that really changed everything for me because facing the blank page and not being told what to paint or not having an assignment or a desired outcome, but just to say, just start and
Mhm.
see what shows up. And around the room, you would see people with everybody was painting something different, and huge pieces, you start with a single piece of paper, and tempera paints, but it would grow and be just, and these magical worlds and really powerful images. And for me too, it ended up after 8 weeks, it was like a 9 panel allegory that it just changed everything. And I love that question, like why are you still doing it, and why creativity, like, why is creativity the answer? Because I don't know that it's something that could be answered intellectually. And
Mhm.
actually, Steph and I we have a podcast as well. On our current episode, it was all about the wisdom of the heart.
Mm.
And I think this is a question that can't be answered so much with the intellect, but definitely with the heart wisdom. And every cell of the body is like a yes when when you're in that flow, that creative
Mhm.
flow. Yeah, it's an absolute yes.
Yes, I love this. So it's so fascinating. I found you guys because I was meditating and I was meditating on creativity, and all of a sudden, creative nectar came into my brain. And I'm like, wow, that sounds really cool. Creative nectar. I have no idea what it is. So when I use my intuition and my heart, which is fascinating that we're talking about this, and I looked up creative nectar and you guys popped up, and I was like, whoa, there's a team, there's a group of creative nectar people. So what I love, I mean, that was my intuition talking, and I followed it. And as an artist, I think we do follow our heart and our intuition. So my question to you is, tell our audience, what is process art? How is it really related to the heart and the intuition? And how can, I mean, this is a tough question, but how can they do it? Like today, how can they start their own process art, if that makes sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yes.
I'll go first, and then Jenny, you can fill in the gaps, because it's an all-encompassing thing. Process art is creating for the process, the inner process rather than the product. So you don't have to have any artistic skills whatsoever. And it's really about connecting to that authentic space in ourselves. And why I think it works, at least for me, and we talked about this in that podcast we were talking about, it drops us from the headspace where there's all that chatter and the self-doubt and all of that, more into the heart space. And then when that happens, then this wisdom can flow when we allow it. It's really a practice, and once that flow begins and you go into that creative flow, there's just so much wisdom there. There's so much wisdom there. And so, I mean, nobody tells you how to do it. You can use basic art materials. There is facilitation generally, like in the bigger workshops, there will be a facilitator like Jenny or myself, or Sarah or Stuart Cubley. And I mean, it's just presence, right? It is just presence and the paper and color and breathing. And then the other question, which is, how can you do it? How can you do it right now? I mean, we've got lots of tools and stuff on Nectar's website. We have a community. There's workshops. It's fairly easy, and yet to get started with it, I needed help. We'll just put it that way.
Hmm. Yeah, and I'll just add that I've listened to your show, this podcast before, and I feel like process art can also encompass just art making in general, any art making that is not focused on creating an end result. So yes, there is the formal like process art, like you can find workshops and like what Steph and I offer and what she was just describing. But also just engaging with your own creative spark for the sake of self-connection, for the sake of exploration in whatever way, with whatever materials could be considered process art, right? It's really a healing, we consider it a healing tool for reconnection to oneself, one's heart, but also reconnection to the world, to our experience. It is a form of meditation, like a moving meditation. And it doesn't necessarily have to, it can be very simple. Like one prompt that Steph often gives and that we give together as we're starting a workshop is doing a scribble practice, like tuning into the body, seeing what part of the body has the most energy in the moment, and then symbolically handing the pen or the paintbrush or whatever to that, part of the body to just start moving. Anything that can get us out of the critical mind and the monkey mind, the comparison mind, and into the body and start, that can start us into the process where it's not something that we control mentally, but really surrender to that flow. And that's where the magic starts to happen, is when we follow the thread of that and see where it leads. And it's always beyond our control and beyond our imagining. We can never know where we're going to end up. And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. So I was going to ask the why, and I feel like you just answered it. Like I was going to ask, like, why does process art sort of get you to a place that other places may not get you to? And it sounds like for your experience, it's that it almost helps you take a break from your mind, on almost tap into a different part of your mind, right? It's almost like you're saying, okay, mind that organizes things and judges things and categorizes things, you can take a break now. I'm going to go to another space and I'm going to dig around there for a bit, and I'm going to let go of those kinds of things. And that, like, why does scribbling do that? Is it because it's not representational? Is it the mental practice of like, okay, I'm gonna do this now, and I'm gonna right? Because I'm trying to talk, like, I'm trying to figure out, because there is a lot of fear around even this notion. There's gonna be a lot of people that are like, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah.
How do you talk people through that when you explain all this, which to the four of us is like, yeah, for sure, because I've done it since I was like 14. I'm in my 40s, and so for me it's like, well, yeah, sure, it's the answer. How do you talk to someone who is still like, number one, that's not going to do anything for me, or number two, that opens up really scary stuff for me, or I'm thinking that might, right, they're still up here saying, I'm thinking that might open up a lot of scary stuff, and I can guarantee them it will. That's what art does, right? How do you guide someone through that part of it? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, firstly, the scribbling is a way to sort of bypass what we're talking about and getting into the body. And then inevitably, as we scribble, things will start to come up, an image, a word or two. And then just it's really a mindfulness practice too. So really just going one step at a time and taking it very, very delicately, just being present as much as possible. And that's what Jenny and I do too. We create a safe space for that to happen. And if people have questions, or they feel stuck, or they're scared, or whatever, we would encourage them to paint the fear. What color is it? How does it want to move? Does it have a caricature? Or same with your inner critic or anything. And what I've found, because I encountered some pretty gnarly stuff, and I still do sometimes. And I what I found is like my inner self doesn't ever give me more than I can handle. And ultimately, it's always scarier on the other side, the brain, like making it into something. But when I actually just sort of hang out with it, confront it, ask it questions, get creative with it, it becomes something entirely different. And I'm able to look at it, encompass it more into me, have conversations. It's really amazing.
Yeah, and what you're describing, Steph, I think of that as almost turning that fear into more of a sense of play and curiosity about it. And when we do that, like you said, Steph, I mean, it's almost like it transforms it. The monsters that we're holding inside of us or trying to stuff down, suddenly they become these big puffy characters or something, like it's almost, it can be fun and almost silly, and it's like shifting the energy of it and really getting it, like you were saying, getting it out in front of us will shift, because when we're no longer in resistance, it's like those big scary things are suddenly something to play with, something to explore. And I love that you said that, Steph, about that, we never get more than we can handle. When we're creating, there's also a sense of agency. There's a sense of being able to choose, being able to say yes or no. And if something feels too big, you don't have to go there, or you can seek help in other ways. It's not like, I mean, I often say, if somebody, is going through something really heavy or big, yes, you can make art around it, but also like you know, talk to your therapist. I mean, like
Right.
there's,
Yeah.
you know, it's so there's, I think there's also that agency around being able to allow in or not, and having the freedom and empowerment to do that. But certainly art making, yeah, it is a space, a safe space. I mean, hopefully it's a safe space. That's what we seek to create. The mind isn't always a safe space, but that's why doing this in community can be so helpful, because then we have a shared, agreed upon safe container where we're all saying, yes, we're holding space for one another. We're not going to speak out loud judgments or praise, you know, we're going to keep it a neutral space, and just really holding whatever is coming up. And that's where having facilitators or teachers or guides, you know, can be really helpful, is just to, you know, when we lead, we don't have the answers for the individual. We serve as sort of a mirror, to reflect back whatever is showing up, and just to hold space, just to be present with. And yeah, there's an alchemy that can happen when we show up to our fears in this way. And I really do want to acknowledge the fear around it, because especially for somebody who's not been creative, or was told when they were in first grade, you know, oh, you really shouldn't do this. I mean, there's some trauma around it. And so, you know, it is, we really do acknowledge that, the courage that it can take, even just to pick up a freaking paintbrush and make marks on paper. And so not to downplay it in any way, but to say that, yes, this is possible and there is support with it. And once you get to the other side of that fear, it's like, oh,
Feels so
the
good.
bliss of it. Oh my gosh, why have I been saying no to this my whole life?
What I
Yeah.
what I mean, yes, I know the fear factor, and I know we've seen the fear come out with people and art fear. But what I'm kind of tapping into is, wow, the power that art reflects within us. Do you know what I mean? Like how powerful you are, that you can do. I mean, this is just what I'm hearing. I'm like it's reflecting, and some people are so afraid of their power. You know, it's almost like that mirror is like, oh my God, it's not a monster, it's me. I'm this warrior or whatever, goddess, and I'm so powerful. And people are afraid of that. I mean, so I don't know why I brought that up, but like maybe let's talk about like why are people so afraid of their true power? Because that's what you're talking about. Through process art, you pull back the onion, you pull back the veils, and there you are. And who are you? And I mean, what I'm hearing is you're a powerful being. Anyways, let's ride with that.
Yes, yes. Steffi, were you going to say
Yeah.
something?
This is what lights me up the most, I think. Maybe not initially. I had no idea what I was going into, you know, initially, but through the years, the transformation that I've seen in myself and others, there is that power, and we speak to it a lot, on our website and Jenny's book and all of that. Like this, it is, I feel like it's necessary for this time, you know, and I think, I feel like, at least for me, I was conditioned out of my power early on, you know, by parents, teachers, just authority figures in general, you know, fill in the blank, like whatever. And I don't need to know the reason why. I mean, it wasn't necessarily done on purpose, but there was like, it was trained out of me. And so like, this is the art of reclaiming that power, that self. And whoo, I mean, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. We feel it is very necessary right now.
Absolutely. We're all unique individual beings that have something important to share, just through our very being, not through being doing machines, but through being and connecting with one another. And we talk a lot about, and I also talk about it in the book Creative Flow, but that we are all receiving this, we all have access to this inherent universal life force energy that is moving through us, that's animating it through us, that's expressing through us every day. And it's our uniqueness, it's our own personalities, our own histories, our own perspectives, all of that, that color and flavor and give like form to and give beauty to that energy, to that inherent spark. And so it's like, so the more we step into our uniqueness, the more we claim our power, as you said, Lisa, you know, it's like, it is I mean, I can't even find words for it right now. You know, like if you can imagine a world where everybody has claimed that for themselves, and not only that, but they are allowing it and expressing it and following their intuition and seeing where it's needed and what connections they wish to make and what they wish to create. I mean, you can imagine what the world could be like when we all break free from our conditioning and our fears, our own internal prisons, you know, and just really step into that vibrance and bloom into whatever it is we're here to do in the world. I mean, that's the power of creativity right there.
Yeah, I know. I'm imagining like right now in my head, like a community in creative flow with one another. I mean, there's like some, it's like a strange musical in my head right now, like flow and dancing and singing, just because that's just how my brain works. But I heard
Yes.
Stephanie say it, you said the words, it's so important right now. And I want you to speak to that a little bit more. Give me a little bit more details from your perspective.
From my perspective, okay, so I believe, and I think Nectar Jenny does as well, but for me, I personally believe that we're sort of on the cusp, like the very beginning stages of a transformation, a global transformation. And humanity is shifting, and you can feel it. You can see little dots here and there of it, little, you know, little clues, and I feel it inside of me. And I believe that we're being asked to shift more from the heart and move more from the heart space, and that involves creativity in all of its forms, not just painting or, you know, art making, because that creator being that's inside of us can move mountains, right? And when we're doing it together in our own unique form, like Jenny was saying, I mean, I just feel like that's what is being asked of as many people that can do it as possible right now.
Yeah, and I'll just add that, you know, we're also on this cusp of, you know, we've got the development of AI and technologies to do more of our thinking for us and more of our, you know, more sort of analytical tasks for us. And it's like, if you fast forward into the future, it's like, imagine, you know, when we have like, yeah, what will the world look like when we have, imagine having spaciousness to create your reality, to co-create our world, to co-create a world that is actually working and sustainable for everyone. Like that's again, it's hard to put into words, but it just seems like I hear people say this, like the future is creative.
Mhm.
The future is creative, and I believe that.
This is amazing. So my question to you guys, because Lauren was talking about a symphony, and it seems like Creative Nectar is kind of a, you know, a musical. You know, what is the what does that feel like? The buzz in a room full of people doing process art, and just kind of like, you know, to give people a taste of that nectar. What's the buzz, and what's the why for you guys?
Oh,
Jenny, you want to go first?
Sure. I'll try to put it into words. Gosh, what a great question, Lisa. Because there is a visceral shift in the room, and you can feel it when people have dropped into that space. And I can only describe it as this, there's a presence, but it's a calm, it's a grounded presence, but it is so interconnected. And all I can say is flow. I mean, I don't, but it's like when you feel that for yourself, but then it's like amplified by every person around you, there's, yeah, I'm sure there's something scientific going on there, but really I'm speaking to the magic of it, that there's some kind of coherence that happens in a group that is magnified. Like I can feel that when I'm in my own studio painting, when I get into
Mhm.
that flow,
Right.
but it is magnified when it's in a room. Steph, do you
Well, it
you want to add
definitely
to that?
is. Well, and I do wonder, I would love like HeartMath to come to one of our workshops and like actually do all the science behind it and figure it
Ooh.
out, because there is something that happens. It's like an empowered heart space that you can feel, and it feels so grounded and good and authentic. I think that's the biggest thing. It's like getting to know people authentically is the best thing ever. And
Mm.
it's like what I crave. And that is what community, that's the community that's created, whether it's in person or we're finding even online in our community. It, there's no real reason it should happen, like technically, but it does. Like there's still that
Yeah.
feeling, and yeah, it's, try it out. I mean, that's like the only way I can describe it, is like, just come play with us for a while. I don't know. It's, yeah.
Yeah.
We so like and I'm sure you can relate to this. It's a mountain to climb sometimes to get people involved in community art. You hit lots of hurdles along the way. That's one of the reasons Lisa and I are constantly asking ourselves, why are we still doing this?
It's a valid question.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is. It is.
Because you encounter a lot of no's and a lot of like, et cetera, et cetera. But then we do our annual event called Art Break Day on the first Friday of every September. We've done that since 2011. And exactly what you were describing, the thing there is no word for, and the thing that happens in like 5 minutes of two strangers sitting down together to make art. And it is something you cannot explain. It is something that someone has to see. But I also think and this is the hard part, you have to be open to see it. But every single year I am exhausted by the time Art Break Day happens. And every day after Art Break Day, I'm like, I can't wait to do it again. And it's a strange cycle.
Yes.
But it's that knowing, right? Because it's that knowing that it has to happen. It's almost like I have to do it no matter what, because of that. Even those two people that, like this year in September, I had 4 people sitting at a table for 3 hours and none of them knew each other. And they had the deepest conversation, right? Of truly knowing someone, and they'll probably never talk to each other again. But that's magic, right? That's the reminder that we all are literally connected. It's not it's not a figurative thing. We are literally connected,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
That, yes.
And I'm laughing because we can so relate to that. I mean, we have times where we're like, corralling people, kind of, hello, is there anybody out there? But then it's like when it happens, and when you have that room full of people, and then it's like, oh yeah. I mean, yeah, you described it so beautifully, Lauren, like that every time. I mean, there's no question as to whether or not we want to do this. I mean, it's like we can't not do it. I guess
Yeah.
I'll speak for myself here. I mean, I'm speaking for you too, Steph.
Oh, it's
For
true.
me, it's there's like not a, yeah, it's something as with anything creative, it's like, because you can't not do it.
Yeah, it's the can't not, right? There's the distinction between that. And yeah, it's just like it's not that you have to do it, it's you can't not do it.
Exactly.
What is that? Like, I don't have obviously I'm asking a lot of questions. I do not have the answer.
Yeah, I mean, I define it as kind of like, you could see it as like a soul purpose almost, or
Yeah.
dharma, a reason for being here, I mean, for the first 12 or so years of my career, I also worked a desk job at the same time I was doing my art. And I think I talked about this in our last episode, didn't I, Steph? But yeah, it's like when you get a nudge, like that inner nudge that doesn't let you go, and you know that you're meant to do something else, you know that you're here for something, or you feel that confirmation when you do it, even though no matter how hard it was, like you were describing, Lauren, it's like there's just times where you just know you don't know why, but you know that you know.
Yeah.
And it's a bodily knowing too. It's a somatic knowing. It's a I was describing how when I was wanting to leave my day job for 2 years, I carried a letter of resignation in my
Wow.
backpack, and I was in
Wow.
battle with my mind. My mind was saying, but this is a steady thing, but this is security. This is and it's like, so that sometimes there's a battle there, but ultimately it's like my heart knew what I was wanting to do next. And it doesn't, sometimes these nudgings just don't let go, or it'll keep whispering in your ear. And it doesn't matter how long it takes. It doesn't matter how old we are. It's never too late to say yes to whatever that nudging wants. And I don't know. I don't have the answers either. I describe it as like a soul thing, I guess. I mean, it's all language anyway, but yeah, what is that? I mean, it's just, yeah. Steph,
Yeah,
do you have anything to add?
only that it feels like a mission, and that's sort of the same
A
thing. Like it's
mission,
my
yeah.
personal mission and I just it won't let go of me. So
I have a
And it's,
something came up. I'm sorry. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say really quick, and it's not like, again, like we're being coerced into this. It's like it won't let you go in a good way. You know
Yes.
what I mean?
Right.
It's like,
right.
no, you will do this.
I want to allude to that because Lauren and I have this conversation all the time. I mean, it's a nudge that we have to do this because yes, art saved my life, right? And I want it to save other people's lives. But why? Just curious, why do we, this four of us, have this nudge to nudge people? And then, why do we feel like, come on, you guys, we know the solution. We know that art is about reclamation. How come, what is that desire or what is that? And then there is that challenge because you do get a lot of no's, you get a lot of like, wow, like, I mean, so let's talk about that and maybe we can end with it. Like, why are we nudging people to reclaim art as their superpower, I should say?
love that. If you don't mind, I will just jump right in. I think art or creativity in general, and that could be, dance or writing or, even how you set the table or make a batch of cookies from scratch, that creative spark inside of us is our authentic self, in my opinion. And just sort of like what I referred to before, like I believe that more and more people are going to want that for themselves, and that's part of this transformation that we talked about. And so for me, I feel like all four of us will probably see evidence of that very, very soon. And I already do to a degree. And I mean, I just feel like it's the flow. It's what's next because we're going to need it because it's us.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And just to add on that, like we were saying earlier about how we're all interconnected and we really feel that and know it, as you were saying earlier about sitting around the table, we're all interconnected. We don't always know it until we drop into that other space. And so if we're all interconnected and we know this for ourselves, that this has saved our lives, why wouldn't we want to share it with others, to save our, it sounds like evangelical, but I really don't mean it that way, We've got the answer. No.
Yeah.
You have the answer.
Yeah.
Yes, we're telling people you have the answer within you. And here's a tool for accessing it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really interesting because like, I'm finding this like almost comedic, but like, it's so vital to say, but like part of me is like, I have a very much like, I'm going to do what I do with my life, and you do what you want to do with your life, because you should be yourself. But here I am being like, you should take an art break. And so I think I have a little bit of a weird relationship with that, because I'm like, wait a minute, I'm telling people they should do what they should be themselves, they should do what they want to do. But like, I think the way to explain that is, the reason I want you to take an art break is because it will help you figure out how to be you. I'm not trying to tell you who to be. I'm trying to help you really find yourself. And so that's like, because the preaching thing, I was just like, we do. I mean, we do it. We definitely are like, we do. Sometimes we're like, hey, we're preaching to the choir today, but we're getting out our bullhorns, and we're like, hey, there's this thing that you're not doing, and we're not, and I'm not trying to be like, you're living your life incorrectly and this is da da da, or I'm trying to save you from something. It's more like, by golly, if you just did this, you would know the no that I know that I cannot describe to you right now. Right?
Yeah, I mean, the phrase that comes to my mind is show, don't tell.
Mm.
And I have to remind myself of this. It's like, just, sharing our presence and sharing our own art and sharing how it's changed us. Sometimes that's how people end up coming to a workshop, one of our workshops. It's like when they see somebody else's process art, or they see how we've changed, or whatever, so it's like, it's so funny, isn't it, how it's like, if I tell people, well, here's what it can do, but it's like, no, but they have, they kind of have to see it, and then be, see it to believe it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
It
It's
is a
almost like-
funny dichotomy, though.
It is. Yeah. It's a constant, like, and that's probably like, because it's in my brain, right? It's your brain trying to wrap around this thing that doesn't have to do necessarily with that front part of your brain. It has to do with your being. And so, and it's like, it's the experience that helps people understand it, but also they're not necessarily gonna do it unless you give them reasons to do it. So it's a battle. Yeah, it's interesting.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, I've used this analogy a lot, the internal excavation of that authentic self. And we're basically just handing people the pickaxe, right? And the little brush to uncover everything. And it's just like, I get it. Like I mean, when you feel what we feel, or what we have felt, that authentic sense of self, through creativity in all its aspects. I mean, yeah.
I love it. It feels like traveling on some sense. That's what I'm, you know what I mean? It's like, it's an inner travel, we
Yes.
go to other places to travel, but I think it's a beautiful thing. And it doesn't really cost much. It doesn't cost anything to travel into this, this final frontier that we all have.
Ooh, I like that. I like that.
I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah, I call it the inward journey. Yeah, art making. Yeah, I mean, that is what it feels like. Yeah.
I know, if we were to just tell people it costs nothing, you just be yourself, you need to go nowhere.
And yet everywhere.
And yet
All at
oh my
once.
God, yeah, everywhere.
Yeah. So like, wow. Thank you so much. This was such a fun conversation. Thank you for having it with us today.
And then,
Oh,
so you
absolutely.
talked about your workshops. How can people join your workshops, get a hold of you, and you have a podcast? Tell them all that information.
Absolutely. Everything can really be found on creativenectarstudio.com. Jenny has a book, like we mentioned, the podcast. I offer one-on-one sessions, and then our community, which we're so excited about, the online community. So yeah, it's just all there.
Yeah, the
For you.
community, Soul Nectar is the name of that. It's kind of like a monthly subscription model, but we have a monthly live workshop on Zoom. We have a private Facebook group. We have a bunch of resources kind of attached with that. And it's really, yeah, like Steph was saying earlier, this is kind of new to kind of shift the community from in person to online in that way. We still do both, but it's amazing how the energy is still there even with online. And we're really excited about that.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, and then the podcast, yeah, and the book Creative Flow, it's all, like Steph said, it's all on the website. And yeah, we'd love to see you all there.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for having us on. It is a blessing and a pleasure to connect with you both.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Viva la art.
Yeah.